This week, friends, I have been having a little bit of vertigo, literally, in my body. It's something that happens to me from time to time, and I'm fine, so you don't need to worry about me. But this physical experience I've been having of turning my head and feeling like the world is spinning out of control, feeling dizzy, feeling like I don't have a solid place to stand on, it sure mirrors the emotional and political atmosphere all around us right now. It's a little bit like being on that carnival ride that's like a tilt-a-whirl, you know? Uh, it's the pandemic. We have reached over 100,000 deaths in this country. It's the economy. Millions of people are out of work. It's yet another Black man murdered by state violence, white violence. It's journalists being arrested on live TV. Then it's tweets from the President of the United States threatening the force of state violence against protesters. It's enough to lay us flat on our back, to lay me flat on my back, unable to find solid ground. When I have had really bad vertigo in the past, the kind that has really laid me out, one thing that helped me get back on my feet was to focus really hard on one thing, to focus my vision on one thing. It didn't totally make it all better, but if I could focus my attention and breathe, then some of that tilt-a-whirl feeling would subside. And that's my invitation to us today, friends. That's why I asked you in this last week to share photos of beauty you have created or witnessed or nurtured in the midst of pain and suffering that lays us out some days. We have got to stay focused on the beauty of life. I know it might seem a little paradoxical, but when we can no longer see the beauty around us or connect to us, when that happens, we lose the capacity to see the possibility for new life to arise. When we no longer feel connected to what is beautiful and good, we lose our connection to that greater love that holds us all, with the life force energy of the universe, that force of life that some of us call God. Biblical scholar Walter Brueggemann reminds us that every totalitarian regime is frightened of the artist. And he describes an artist not just as a painter or a sculptor or a poet, but as one who, quote, keeps alive the ministry of imagination, to keep on conjuring and proposing alternative futures to the single one the King wants to urge us as the only thinkable one. So my invitation to us as we connect with creating and witnessing and nurturing beauty is to consider ourselves in a ministry of imagination. You know, the young folks leading protests around this country this week, there are plenty of people of all ages, but I have to say it's the young folks who are leading. They are artists. They are rising out of beauty, keeping alive the hope for an alternative future right now. And some of them, I am sure, are also doing so out of rage. Some of them out of a feeling of like, I've got nothing left to lose at this point. And I want us to remember that no one puts their lives on the line like that without a very deep feeling of commitment to what and to whom you love. What and who you're willing to sacrifice for. And beauty, when we experience it, that it asks us to feel love, whether it's the forest or the face of a loved one or the spirit of a teacher or the wild imagination of children or the quilted creation of a friend or the hundreds, thousands of people peacefully assembling in the face of the forces of death. When we experience something beautiful, we feel a pull towards love, and we are called by that experience to commit our lives to growing more space for that beauty to flourish. We as a congregation aspire to be a place where love grows. And in a little while, we will be engaging in congregational conversation, a time for feedback about how we will be in community in the coming year in these pandemic times, perhaps in ways we haven't yet imagined. And I want to invite us to not get too complicated about it. I want to invite us to focus in really hard on where we are experiencing beauty in our community right now and how we grow that wider and wider. I want to invite us to focus in really hard on the fundamentals of why we exist as a congregation and to ask what's possible, not what's wrong. I want us to ask who and what do we love so much that we're willing to sacrifice some of our comfort and our own resources for them. And that is where we can find some steady ground in the midst of the vertigo of this very unsteady world right now. I want to close today by sharing some words from the Unitarian minister A. Powell Davies. He served All Souls Church in Washington, D.C. from 1944 to 1957 when he died. And he was one of those white leaders, white faith leaders committed to civil rights activism. And he once wrote this: "Let me tell you why I come to church. I come to church and would, whether I was a preacher or not, because I fall below my own standards and need to be constantly brought back to them. I am afraid of becoming selfish and indulgent, and my church of the free spirit, brings me back to what I want to be. I could easily despair. Doubt and dismay could overwhelm me. My church renews my courage and my hope. It is not enough that I should think about the world and its problems at the level of a newspaper report or magazine discussion. It could too soon become too low a level. I must feel again the love I owe to others. I must not only hear about it, but feel it. In church, I do." So however we do it, friends, on Zoom, in small groups, in community vigil, in service, may we, in this coming time, be a community that gives witness to beauty, that connects us to feeling love for one another and for our fellow neighbors. And may we rise up steady from that place, ready to serve the forces of life. May it be so. Amen.